Good. Hey, how you doing? This is Dr. Dave of Paragon Chiropractic and Dr. Abby. Today's blog is entitled, or vlog, I guess, but I thought science had us covered. Hello again. So I really hope you enjoyed the last blog and or video. If a person was to study only one thing and challenge himself along the lines of that study, and from that study was able to know all there was to know, what would that one thing be? For all the many sciences and ologies we've heard of, those we've studied and the many more that we never knew existed, very little is truly known about the one subject worthy of a lifetime of study. The mystery grows. Oh, many a theory has been posited regarding this subject, and perhaps it was always hoped that by studying this thing over here, some magical transfer of knowledge would allow us to know better the one subject that these past several millennia still remains relatively unknown to science. Wow. For all the ologies, philosophies, and isms, and the many who claim to know, one would find himself challenged to gain any real wisdom he could use. Yeah, you've studied, you've seen, it's like you still don't know anything about anything. And if one only truly wished to study this subject, what would he study? Graduates, this is a quotation, graduates of our high schools and colleges lack the experience of actually knowing anything, of knowing it and knowing the reasons. They don't even have the habit of wanting to know the reasons why they believe things. Their minds are crammed with information, but they prefer to believe it on a say-so, such as science says, or science has shown that. There are science teachers who actually claim they teach a healthy skepticism. They do not. They teach a profound gullibility, and their dupes, not trained to think for themselves, will swallow any egregious rot, provided it is dressed up with long words and an affectation of objectivity to make it sound scientific. This was from Science is a Sacred Cow by Anthony Standen, published in January of 1950.
Wow.
That was 73 years ago. And look around. Can anyone think? They're told stuff. There we go. We'll have
All right.
Dr. Abby read right there.
Good. All right, so following up that, it says, wow, that sounds a bit harsh.
It does.
But look around. Consider the last 3 or 4 years. So many experts, so much information, so much science, so many people willing to kill their neighbor for not believing what they believe. So many hoping for tragedy to befall those who would not follow, and yet here we all are, perhaps waiting for round 2 of Science Knows Best.
Yeah, and go
A
ahead.
potentially deadly game if there ever was one.
A very potentially deadly game. Science knows best. You think about that. I'd heard somebody said, whatever you want to know, just pick your epidemiologist and he'll tell you about what you want to believe, and you follow that. It's like at some point there's a truth of something, and then there's all the rest of the stuff. Yeah, at any rate.
And something else that we kind of, everybody heard over the last, 3 or 4 years was the, kind of rhetoric of, I trust science, I believe science. Science was never meant to be trusted or believed. It was meant to be proved wrong, to test, to disprove, to come up with other questions. If you read any research article, even, double-blind controlled studies, the gold standard of studies, in conclusion, there's always that, brick of, text of conclusion. It always says further testing is needed. We need to test with these variables, with that variable. So science really is never to be fully just blindly trusted. It's meant to be tested, proved wrong, and tested again and tested again. So I really think that kind of boils down to what, my dad's been preaching for quite some time, is figure out what's true for you
Got to think for yourself.
and think for yourself.
Yeah, science
Exactly.
is not definitive. Science should actually still be trying to prove whether or not water's wet. Just because it was the last 12,000 times doesn't mean the 12,001st. And you're like, well, no, that's the skepticism. That's the healthy skepticism. You look and you observe. And in some situations, wet water is a good thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing. You have to look at the situation and assess what's going on and apply what will work, not what you learned or knew.
Good. So, what to do? A person has better start living and determine what is life and livingness for themselves. Be their own scientist and pose their own hypotheses and do their own experience, create their own theories, and apply them to life, all while being willing to say, I was wrong.
Bingo.
Then,
Yeah, there it is.
when they were, and start the whole process over again for the betterment of all.
Exactly.
This is the one thing the great priesthood of science simply will not do, is admit when it was wrong.
Right.
It's not that they can't, in fact, they should. It's that scientists and their benefactors just won't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hitch my wagon onto this nonsense.
That's right. If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You come out and you say you're wrong, and further studies have found. You'll find people out there. There's a cat out there right now. I'm not going to name his name. That 30 years ago came up with the low-fat, high-carb diet is supposed to be the best. He's still out there now, talking about that and poo-pawing and all the rest of the stuff. And it was never a good idea. And when you look at the research, it just increased the number of heart attacks and other cardiovascular events.
Yeah.
Say you're wrong. You know, well, you got to just clutch onto this stuff and prove everybody. Nobody benefits. Nobody benefits.
And something else quite interesting is that generally a kind of a rule of thumb is modern medicine is always about a decade behind. So, hopefully in the next 10 years we start to see, people getting on the bandwagon of that, eating animal fats, eating animal proteins, eating all of these things that were deemed kind of as the devil. In terms of cholesterol and things like that. Hopefully we'll start to see that come full circle where they're like, we're actually seeing that when you eat these whole nutrient dense foods, your body actually does a lot better. So hopefully we'll be around to see that kind of change tide there. So, so the one subject, life.
Yeah.
Most of science's ologies do little else than dehumanize man, claiming that man is a soulless animal that is the result of some impossible happenstance of mud and ammonia being animated by a bolt of lightning, and never providing any explanation of where the sea of ammonia or the mud or the lightning bolt came from.
Isn't that brilliant? And that would be the one thing a person would want to dedicate his entire life to studying. Life, wisdom, learning. And that's exactly it. If you listen to science right now, because a dolphin or a whale has a radius and an ulna and carpal bones, then somehow we're related. And by studying a whale, we can know more about our arm and stuff like that. But the thing we need to do is we need to kill the whales and take them out of the ocean so we can study their arms to know about our arms. And at the end of the day, what do you need to know about an arm? It reaches for stuff. It does things. It actually holds a book. It says hi to people.
All right. And you might be burnt at the stake as a heretic if you do ask. I guess it's easier this way to kill people with bombs, warfare, diseases, drugs, and the pandemic of stupidity, right? A person can't really kill something per se that wasn't really thought to be alive in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Only one small problem with this theory. Not only are we alive, but we are the source of life and livingness. A little detail all the scientists and their ologies seem to have missed, too busy trying to figure out what they could do to us rather than for us.
Perfect. Do for us, do for us. But they're too busy trying to figure out what they can do to us. Mm-hmm. And you see this. You'll look around. Every place you look in the architecture. Look at how the towns are being set up and everything. Everything is meant to dehumanize. And I won't even get into all the rest of the arguments and things along those lines. But it's dehumanize, 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 and eventually you're worthless. And At any rate. But yeah, so much for science.
Mhm. Science. Now there's a word. Oh wait, sentience.
Sentience.
Sentience. Now there's a word. Sentience. This would be consciousness and the awareness that one would know that he is alive and living.
How magnificent. And yet science, you're supposed to take drugs, you're supposed to be a drunk, you're supposed to be pounded down, and yet this ability to feel and be aware of the fact that you're even alive is just beaten into the ground. Okay.
I know it's hard to put your finger on, but you know exactly what I am talking about. You can feel it, you know it. It is the awareness of awareness unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, is the thing that separates human from all other life on this planet.
Yeah. We know we're alive.
This sentience really must be something because it is the target of science. The various medical societies, universities, pharmaceutical companies, alcohol manufacturers, politicians, and anyone who wishes to control our futures.
Yep. They want to crush that sentience so that you're just a robot or a machine. You're hypnotized on a cell phone all day and computer screens, and you walk around. I mean, do you realize in time your vision really won't see any further than where your cell phone is? And what about all this life out here? Doesn't matter.
This too might be a topic for hundreds of blogs, but back in the mid-90s, a study was presented showing that while the United States comprised only 6% of the total world population... What did I say?
Compromise.
Oh, shoot.
No, U.S. doesn't compromise anything, baby.
United States comprised only 6% of the total world's population. We as a nation consumed over 66% of all the drugs and medicines made on this planet. Back in 2016, the National Institute of Drug Abuse claimed that the United States consumed over 75% of all the prescription drugs made on the planet.
About that.
Currently, the U.S. population is 4.25% of the total planet. What a better way to destroy sentience than whack everyone out on drugs, alcohol, processed garbage foods, and a steady hypnotic flow of social media and the news.
That's it. And it is. We're drugged up. Listen to those numbers. We're less than a sixth of the population of the planet. We consume over 75% of all the prescription drugs made in the world. We consume over 66% of all the drugs made in the world. And that's because we care so much about you. No, it's to just flatten you so you're a dead, hypnotic zombie that doesn't think, doesn't anything, just sits there and consumes. I'm reading a book right now, Brave New World. You talk about that with the drug they put everybody on, and it's a consumer society. You just consume and waste and consume and waste, and when you feel bad about it, you pop a pill and you go off to dreamland.
Something else
Good
that's
luck.
Really interesting I heard at a seminar is that the United States population, anyone over the age of 60 is on an average of 12 pharmaceutical drugs. Average. That means that there's people way over exceeding 12 and there's people, so it's an average of 12. That's incredible. Let's see here. One would have to work very hard and do so each and every day to retain his humanness, his humanity, and grow as a sentient being.
Yes.
This would include reading, sleeping, eating correctly, exercising, and being more tolerant of one's fellow man.
That's exactly right. You and me and everybody has to work on being human. Mm-hmm. It's not just a given because everything around you is trying to just pound that humanness flat and get rid of it. I'm not sure why, but when you look around, that's what's going on. Yeah. You have to push back. You have to study. You have to work on your virtue, your humanity, your desire to help, your humanness, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and it's not incredibly easy. When you look at the way that society's trying to throttle us, it takes an incredible amount of personal responsibility to get to bed at an appropriate time, to not eat processed garbage, to, stay hydrated, to be in your community, to love your family. It takes a lot. There's a lot of different acting forces that are trying to propel you down a certain path. And so it takes quite a bit of resistance. I guess you could
Yeah,
say.
we might have to shut the TVs and the screens and the cell phones off.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Sentience, knowing that one is truly alive and able to experience those sensations associated with living. What must a wildebeest be thinking when it watches one of its own killed and eaten by crocodiles, laying wait in the same river he must now cross? What does he think? What does he feel? Does he even care? We do, or at least we should, but I mean, isn't science trying to build a bridge? Or I'm sure our politicians will pass a law making crocodiles illegal, right?
Yeah, it's all taken care
Hey,
of.
we're saved.
We can just sit here and chew on our cud and watch our fellow wildebeest get eaten by crocodiles because the government and science is taking care of it all. Yeah. Oh, good.
And then-
Just jump in the river right now.
And then my dad goes so far as to say, pass the bong and hand me another can of beer. Nope, I do not do that either.
Yeah. I don't drink or do drugs. Never did.
Hooray!
But- Go ahead. But
Hooray
yeah.
for science! Hooray for all that thinks for us.
Exactly. Hooray for everything that thinks for us. Now we just get to go through the motions and they'll tell us everything to feel and know and what we should be and what's important and what's not. There we go.
Yeah. But the bigger question still remains. What are we going to do about the world we find ourselves in? I guess wade into the river and hope someone else gets it, right? But knowing that one's turn is imminent, shouldn't one want to do something now to prevent it, or heaven forbid that someone else doesn't get it? One would mechanically go through the motions of life, their actions disconnected from any meaningfulness or purpose. Isn't that what science is all about? Wouldn't a study of life be, well, life-saving? Boy, I wish this was a little more uplifting, but it's not. But I always try and post something to make a person think. Did I do it? Please comment below or somehow and let me know. Best wishes to all of us. Take care, Dr. Dave.
Yeah, please let me know what you think. I am an animated type person, yeah, you think about it. You think about that wildebeest, and you just get this idea. If you're sitting there and you're going to have to cross this river, or somebody a loved one, a friend, even if they're not a fellow human, wouldn't you want to try and do something or think something of a way for people to survive and do better? I understand it's all part of the master plan, and the crocodiles need to eat too. But it just makes more sense to try and help others do better, and that would be the thing that you'd really want to focus your study and your efforts on.
Yeah. I like it. That was a heavy blog, but I think hopefully it gets your wheels turning, that the path of least resistance is one that you might want to resist against a little.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where, surely if we were all on the right track, if these pharmaceuticals, if the food, super heavily processed food, if all of this stuff that's being shoved down our throats for the health and betterment of our society, surely we would have a healthier and better society. But if you look around, that just truly isn't the case. So resist and be responsible for yourself and your fellow man. And I promise things will turn out a little better.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yep.
Cool.
Good. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And please comment and let me know what you think.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Talk to you next week.
Bye.